So the Legend of Zelda 30th anniversary came and went yesterday, and everybody's been celebrating it in their own unique way. A lot of different YouTube channels and gaming websites have been posting their top 10 moments in Zelda, their top 5 favorite character countdowns, as well as also retrospectives on some of their favorite titles in the series. The Legend of Zelda is arguably one of the most iconic video game series of all time, and it's really resonated with a lot of people throughout the entire world. But rather than retread a lot of similar and familiar territory that you're going to get from a variety of different people in celebration of the 30th anniversary of Zelda, I'm actually going to offer you guys something a little bit different. I'm going to offer you guys a vlog, a little story that tells a much more personable story and personal take on why The Legend of Zelda is so significant to me individually as a person, and why, the series has impacted me much like it's impacted a variety of different people around the world. Bear with me. This is probably one of the hardest vlogs I've actually ever had to do. It's something that's really close to me and really emotionally kind of like tied to my backing, tied to my history and stuff. And I want to share all that with you, not only to celebrate the history of Zelda, celebrate this franchise, being around in the gaming industry for these 30 years, but also celebrate what makes Zelda so significant and what makes Zelda so important and why so many people love the actual game series. Here we go. The Legend of Zelda is something that impacted me as a young child. I played the N64 games, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask back in the day, and even at various points in my life in my youth, I actually went back to the SNES and the NES to play some of the classic games, like A Link to the Past, as well as the original game on the NES or the Famicom. But there's actually one event, or I should say a series of events, that really made the series kind of like impact me and change my life forever, and really kind of like, help shape me into the person I am today. The Legend of Zelda actually allowed me to fall in love for the first time, cat out of the bag. I actually fell in love with someone through the actual mutual appreciation and mutual love and enthusiasm for The Legend of Zelda as a series, as a video game series. I met this person back, when I was younger, back in my early days of college, before YouTube, before, IGN, before any of Gamers with Games stuff or any of this type of stuff that you see now. This is like year -2. And I met this person through our actual mutual love for The Legend of Zelda. It was interesting, and the way I could kind of describe it for you guys, if you want a little bit of symbolism. Zelda, for me, or the series, I'll just refer to it as Zelda, was kind of like that friend that you have that introduces you to someone that actually really impacts your life, and you form a bond or relationship with that person. Zelda was like, quote-unquote, the third wheel, if you really want to think about it. But it was allowed me to meet this particular person and really kind of like resonate and grow to have a strong bond with this person. Eventually grew stronger and stronger throughout the years, even after college and such. But then at some point, I had to kind of come down here, down south in the United States, and I had to move far away. And we had to go long distance. But we still maintain a strong bond for what it was. And a lot of it also had to do with Legend of Zelda, that we were both big gamers. I remember vividly actually being together with this person and actually just playing a variety of different games with them. But specifically, I remember sitting down or just laying back and just chilling out by playing something like Ocarina of Time 3D, playing it together, or just, taking turns on a particular Zelda game like The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker or even Skyward Sword, and actually just enjoying not only the game, but also the company of that person that was so special to me, and actually really, I felt like I had such a strong bond, an unbreakable bond at the time that really meant something to me and really kind of like really hit me deep down and deep. Anybody that's been in love or anybody that's really had a strong bond like that knows exactly what I'm talking about, that the feeling is almost very indescribable. But alas, things weren't kind of, planned out, or didn't really turn out the way that it was initially envisioned. Things changed over time, and things got a little bit much more harder, not only for myself, but for the other person, especially with the long distance and such. We actually had to kind of, do what we can to kind of like see each other and actually get together at different various points. But we always still had that bond, and we always still had that actual mutual appreciation for the series. We would get together, at various points, whether I would go up there or they would come down here, and I would actually just play games with them or just experience various different things. Even when we couldn't go out and do like what normal couples do, we still did fun activities together where we could actually just, again, enjoy our time and really appreciate our love and our bond together. And eventually over time, we went through that, again, for a good number of years, until finally what really kind of like, came to a head, and what really I decided to do was go to the next step. The Legend of Zelda actually allowed me to actually propose to someone, to actually get engaged. It was a joyful time. I remember, even though it wasn't the series itself that pushed me to do it. It was one of the things that that really kind of brought us together. I remember bringing this person to Walt Disney World for the first time, that they had never been there, and I took them on to the bottom of the Magic Kingdom. Where during the fireworks, where the castle, Cinderella's castle, was right there. And I remember getting down on one knee and seeing the joy in their eyes, about, the next step of what might be something special and everlasting for us. And it was truly amazing. And it was something that just blew my mind. Shortly afterwards, for the rest of the trip, I remember going to places like Epcot in Japan and seeing all the cool little things, that were little Legend of Zelda, little kind of stickers or little figures or stuff that you would find in the Japan section of Epcot. It was absolutely just awesome. And you would find it in other different places, especially downtown Disney and such. And I would see these little things, and we would just, appreciate that and have fun, just, finding all the different things, thinking about what we could buy and stuff like that. And it was so much fun. It was a joyous time, and something that I would probably never ever forget in my entire life. But alas, fate unfortunately would not have it, and things unfortunately changed for the worst. After some time, with that, and we were engaged for a little bit over a year or so, to almost about 2 years, things started to drift apart. And while our appreciation and our love for The Legend of Zelda never actually changed per se, we still loved the games, and we still had those moments where we actually still lay back together and just play through something like Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS. I remember vividly playing through that entire game and getting almost everything in it, 100%ing all the heart pieces, all the glass bottles, all the stuff for the Bigoron sword, together with this person, and just, again, really resonating with that time and enjoying it and such. But then something happened, and this is what was one of the turning points that helped really change my life forever. I remember back when it happened, during the time, right around the time of E3 that year. And it was it was about a week or so prior to it. I remember getting a phone call of the person telling me that they had lost their engagement ring. And, it was gone. It was something that I worked hard to get, and I made a lot of sacrifice to do. And anybody that knows when you're with someone and something like that happens, it could be anything. It's not just losing a trinket or something, but something happens where it was supposed to mean something and really try to actually resonate with you and be something that was everlasting between the two of you, that you did it as a token of your love and a token of your, your actual, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable place. When something like that happens, the feeling that you get inside, it's almost indescribable. So after processing what had happened and such, I really kind of, I didn't know how to feel, and I told them, that don't worry about it, I'll figure something out, and I'll come up with something. I was actually trying to come up with an idea of, not only to speed things up so that way we wouldn't have to be far apart, and actually try to, set things right and set things, in a way where we both could be together for a long time. That way, those moments where I'm sitting around playing Zelda on 3DS or playing on the Wii or the Wii U or whatnot would be a long time coming. It would make for some truly epic, awesome moments that, there would be no more worry and there would be no more actual bad times or things that would really give us a lot of anxiety. But it got a little bit worse than that. I remember it being the E3 that year, the same day when E3 was started. It was before my first E3, and it was before the Microsoft press conference. I got a phone call, and it was one of the things that the first thing that came out of their mouth was that they wanted to be alone. And anybody that's been in that position, that's gotten that at one point, knows how it feels, but can't put into words of what it's like. It's very hard to do so, and a lot of people try to do their best they can, and some are better at it than others. But then, between everybody, what's very similar and what everybody shares in the experience is that it's almost indescribable how much it hurts. And what's worse even with that, it was more, there was hardly ever a reason given. There was hardly ever really justification other than the fact that they just wanted to be alone. It made me stop everything, a rush of emotions and stuff. Again, if you're keep going with this whole, analogy of how Zelda was the Legend of Zelda series was like that other friend that it brought you together and stuff. It made me. It not only couldn't help, I couldn't even stand the sight of looking at any of the games at that point. I really displaced my anger and my sadness and my hurt and my emotion, on this series. And it was one of those things where, I just didn't even want to be around it. I didn't even want to look at it. And it hurt a lot for a long time. It put me in a really bad depression, dealing with it. So after that, and again, trying to process all of this stuff, it really, I found myself in a position where I felt very sad, very alone, and very, vulnerable. Vulnerable in the sense more so than what I was beforehand when I was with them. And this went on for a very long time. It went on for years. There was a visceral hurt and a visceral pain and damage that for a time I thought would never be repaired, that I thought would never come to light. And I tried everything of which I could. One of the worst things you could try to do when you're in this type of position is trying to actually, wash it away or try to displace it with something else or try to replace it with something else. Try to do everything that you can. Some people deal with it better than others. But with mine, it was one of those things where I was really, truly depressed and really, truly hurt on such a level that I was never been hurt on before. And then after some time, things got a little bit better, and things got a little bit much more picked up and such. It was really what kind of got me out of that depression was actually seeing one of my best friends, videos, HMK. If you guys know him, he's a really big Legend of Zelda guy. Seeing his videos and stuff really pulled me out of that dark moment that I had. And it was one of the reasons why I've always been a really good friend to him ever since then. Someone that I think is really good people and such like that. But despite all that and despite myself picking myself out of this, I still held a disdain for The Legend of Zelda as a series. It was more because, not that the series was bad or anything, or not that the series had done any ill will towards me. It wasn't that friend that really they did anything wrong to you, but just because that they remind you of a time that you had just lost and that you didn't have anymore, and it was gone because of something that it wasn't your fault and such. I couldn't help but hold a deep disdain and a deep bitterness and a deep anger and sadness towards it, that I completely just shut it out from there. There were times where I actually wanted to just take all my games that I had and actually just throw them away, or even just take them to GameStop and actually try to just get rid of them so I wouldn't have to look at them anymore. And it's something that I just couldn't do. Every time I tried, I came this close so many times, I couldn't even describe how many times I came that close to doing so and, just getting rid of them, and I just couldn't do it. It wasn't anything where I was a coward or a pussy or a wimp or anything of the sort, but it was something that, even though part of my mind and part of my emotion that was there just wanted to get this done and just have it be done and over with and stuff, and another part of my being, another part of my inner deeper self just wouldn't allow it and just wouldn't be able to do so. I felt like I was just being ripped apart at the very core. But over time, I just put them away and I just locked them away where I didn't even look at them. There were times also where I had to do reviews for various websites and stuff, and the series did come up. I remember swallowing my pride and swallowing really, really deep inside, actually getting them done and actually just doing them due diligence. I remember that being the case when a Link Between Worlds came out and also Majora's Mask 3D came out, and I actually had to do the reviews for them on the Koalition.com. You could find them, on the internet and such. And I remember doing that, and I remember it hurting a lot, and I remember having such a deep-rooted anger and sadness throughout that entire time, despite me getting them done. And then again, I just locked them away and I just put them away where I didn't have to see them anymore. But things got a tiny bit better, and there was a couple different things that came up here and there where communication was reestablished, in some form or fashion. And me being the person that I am, despite all that stuff that had happened at that point, I really, tried to go out my way for this other person after that bridge was somewhat realigned and rebuilt in some fashion. But then things only got worse. I got into a car accident sometime afterwards. And anybody that's been in a car accident knows there's that sense of kind of moment where you think it's going to come to an end and where it's going to come to a head, where you lose control of everything that's around you, and then whatever happens within those brief moments and stuff like that, whether it's the impact, whether it's the sense of laws, whether it's something that goes wrong in your car or something that's in the environment that causes you to lose that momentary control like that. It's very real. And anyone that's been in a bad car crash especially knows what I'm talking about. Again, that feeling could be very indescribable, especially when you come that close. Granted, your boy is still here, thank goodness. Luckily enough, I'm still here, and, you know, things are cool. What everybody does in those moments like that, you know, amongst everything else. I remember coming back home after dealing with everything else and trying to get away for some time. I actually remember looking at my game collection, actually seeing the Legend of Zelda series there, and that was the one thing that kind of like really sparked this thing in me that really almost, again, still brought me an element of sadness, but really gave me this inkling of what I felt I had to do at the time. It really kind of, you know, it was hard for the moment. So what did I do? I actually reached out to this person again. I reached out to them and, you know, felt that because this was someone I had such a deep rooted connection with, again, for a time, that it was someone that I could trust, that I could really look to a little bit for solace and really kind of, you know, not only recalibrate myself and really kind of get the dropping of knowledge on me, or dropping of was it wisdom and real talk that I needed at that moment in time. But it really, you know, I felt I needed to, that was the one person I could go to that I could really just, you know, say something to and really kind of like make peace, some sort of element of peace with after going through something like that. But it wasn't how I expected. Unfortunately for me, I got not only a really cold shoulder in the sense where it wasn't I was anything trying to be attractive or trying to hit on or anything like that, but it was one of those things that I found no solace. I was even denied the courtesy of a phone call to be like, hey, are you okay? I wasn't even given that. And that really hurt. I wasn't even given that. And that really hurt. I can never truly understand either why, for what reason, that a person, when you're connected so deeply rooted with them, that they could actually just, you know, not care for you in that moment and not care, you know, for not really have that any inkling of caring whether you live or die. That immediately you're just wiped off away from them, you know, despite your years of being together. And don't give me that nonsense about how, you know, things are done and they're over with. You know, when you pass a certain point, you know, in your life with somebody, and you pass a certain point with any type of individual, things change up to a certain point, that there's certain things that are done between the two of you that there's almost like a mutual understanding, at least, you know, how much you're willing to go for with each person, despite how circumstances might be. And that hurt really bad. Really, really bad, coming to that realization. This is something that I held dearly, you know, for a very long time, you know. It's like my last little heart point, you know. I remember it back in the day. I haven't opened it since but it holds something dear to me. And after that went down, and after everything was settled and stuff, I really truly realized not only that that was completely just shut out from the rest of my life, that chapter was closed in such a way that it wasn't by my choice, it wasn't by my control, it wasn't by my hand, that I couldn't even, you know, I couldn't process it really, really good. And again, a really deep bitterness and a real deep anger for not only that, but again, for a series that gave me so much joy and so much good times and stuff. I just couldn't stand the sight of it for, you know, a long time. And again, I found myself in those moments where I came this close to getting rid of them, all my games and all my acknowledgement of the series, and I didn't. Again, being ripped apart at the core here, you know, for all that stuff. And time went on, time passed, you know, time passed, and it's true what a lot of people say, you know, in a lot of regards. And I think it's very fitting for something like The Legend of Zelda, you know, as a series, as an IP, as a franchise, as a story, as with its characters, and the very thing that everybody knows of from the actual games, you know, the Ocarina of Time and stuff. It's very true that they say that all time heals all wounds. Time really does heal all wounds, and it takes a while, and it takes a good portion of effort, patience, and understanding, and, you know, self-acceptance, and really kind of like, you know, solitude, to really understand that and to really allow it to take hold, to really take process. I never gave up my games, which is pretty cool, and I held on to them. And I always felt that maybe down the line I would actually, kind of like, have some sort of elements of forgiveness, for the other person. But I never did after that. And it wasn't so much that I had to forgive the other person, or I had to really kind of just accept things as they were and really be okay, quote unquote, with how things turned out. But really, I was not only projecting my anger, my hatred, and my bitterness, and my sadness, and my loneliness, and such, and all these other emotions that one would feel at a trying time like that onto a series that just gave me so many cool memories, and something that really never wronged me at all. That just, no matter what, despite everything that changed around me and everything that changed, between people, this never changed for me, and it was always there when I needed it, even though I didn't want it at the time. So, keeping with the symbolism, keeping with the analogy and stuff, I guess I could say is this, I'm sorry, Zelda. It wasn't your fault. It was partially mine and all of theirs. I hope you can't forgive me. You never changed when things changed around me. You're always there when I needed you. You're always there when you felt it was time when I would go back to you and actually begin the healing process. They have a thing in Zelda called the Song of Healing, which actually brings back being up to the standard, or how, recuperates and rejuvenates things after going through whatever hardship or whatnot. So I guess you could say this is about my time for my own type of healing, my own little Zelda reawakening. And I was saying to myself, even trying to make this vlog and coming to terms of what I wanted to say with this vlog after dealing with everything, I might be going through a little Zelda reawakening and actually going back and playing the series that I loved for so long, despite everything that happened. So you might see me talk about the actual series at some point down the line. Again, a little bit much more open and a little bit much more, with better care. So hope you can forgive me.